Hello, everyone, and thanks once again for clicking into another edition of Sit Down with Ed Brown. And we've had the opportunity to have on the show many expert researchers who have had such an opportunity to share their stories and their expertise. And today's guest is no different. Our guest today was a part of what could very well be the best FLIR image ever captured of a Bigfoot. Today, we welcome Jonathan Brown to the show. How you doing today, Jonathan?
Good. How are you doing, Ed?
I'm doing great, man. Appreciate you taking the time today to join us on the show and talk about some of the things you've been through, what you got going on. You're quite a busy guy.
Yeah, I really appreciate you for having me on the show. I love your show, and it's an honor to be involved.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, Jonathan, I always have to get started off by asking my guests this really big question because I love it. I love every answer I've gotten so far, and that is, how did you get interested in Bigfoot in the first place?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things as a kid, you know, when you hear anything about like Bigfoots or monsters, anything like that. I mean, it's always something that's fascinating and of interest. But over the course of my life, I mean, I've heard family and friends talking about, you know, different experiences that they've had, and it was one of those things that I've always believed. But you know, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly when I became really interested. I mean, over time, as you know, things developed, I would, you know, look up things on the internet about Bigfoot, and you know, think what you want about the BFRO or anything like that. That aside, their database is pretty amazing as far as, you know, all of the sightings and encounters.
Oh, I agree 100%. They've got a great database. A lot of good information
you know,
there.
And, you know, several years back when, you know, Finding Bigfoot came about, regardless of any results that they had, I mean, anything that I see on TV, Monster Quest, whatever, if they don't have any results with Bigfoot, it's still fun to watch. So I think that was something that also, you know, piqued my interest and motivated me to go Bigfooting on my own.
That's awesome. And I think you make a great point there, because I've said 100 times, these guys walking around the woods with cameras and all the people and making all the noise, they're not going to catch a Bigfoot like that. However, what they have done for the community is awesome, because they've brought so many new people in, so many interested people in, that it's helped the community, I think, overall.
Well, I mean, because of that, you know, there's so many people that I'm sure have a very similar situation to me, that it just took that, you know, extra awareness of people are actually out there looking for Bigfoots. I'm going to go do the same thing.
Sure. And speaking of going and doing the same thing, now you and your wife, Sarah, have probably, you know, one of the best pieces of FLIR footage even out there. And that's, you know, the one where you see from basically the chest up of this thing standing there. Tell us about what was going on when you got that, and set that up for us. I mean, tell us the story.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, first of all, I wasn't technically the one who filmed it. I had found it through looking through the thermal imager at the time, and I took a snapshot, which I thought was getting it to record, and the device wasn't recording. And so, you know, we had it for a couple of weeks, and we really didn't spend a whole lot of time getting to know it. But my brother Joel is actually the one who filmed it. I handed it over to him to see if he could get it recording. He did, and I mean, there's an obvious mistake within the recording that shows our experience level with it as well, that FLIR BTS has an auto shutdown. And when it shut down after several minutes of recording, we had to figure out how to get it, you know, going again. And, you know, by the time that had happened, things weren't the same. The Bigfoot was gone.
Sure. Now, with all that being said, and I completely understand things like that happen, what happened? I mean, you guys are out there, and who sees it first? I mean, kind of tell me what was going through your mind? I mean, you see this thing, you're like, oh my gosh, and you start filming it.
Well, we had started on our property that we have there. It had started out with, I had heard 2 whistles coming from different sides of the property, and it wasn't bird whistles. It was whistles with something that had lips, and it didn't make sense to me that there would be a couple different people that would be walking around out there, because I went in the house, grabbed my flashlight and my pistol, and I couldn't see anybody navigating through the woods with flashlights or anything like that. And if it was a person, they would have known that, they're not in a safe position right there.
Sure.
And so after that, my brother and I started going to an area on the property, almost nightly for, an hour, hour and a half, and just listening to see what else we could hear. And it turns out there's been a lot. It's just a matter of getting out there. I mean, you're not gonna encounter a Bigfoot if you're sitting at home all day. It's a matter of being in good locations and putting in the time.
Absolutely. And well, with this particular location, you said this is on your own property where this was taken?
Yeah, and this one happened to be actually, the thermal footage actually happened to be really close to our house.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual area is over a few hundred acres.
So you're out there, you hear whistling, so you guys go and investigate, and you're out there night after night after night after night, and you guys are sitting there one night, and are you the first one to see it actually standing there?
Well, the thing is, I would have to kind of rewind a little bit. Like when I was looking through the thermal imager, I knew that there were some cows back there, but I was surprised how many that there were. We had heard some tapping on a tree,
mm-hmm.
and we weren't sure if it was a cow taking a crap, where you just hear pop, 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 because it was light tapping. And so that's when we had decided to scan around and see what was around us. And I'm looking at something that does not have the heat signature of any of the cows, because there's a heat signature of a cow there. It's very clear what those look like.
Right.
And I'm looking at something that has like a human-shaped head, And believe it or not, when you're looking through the viewfinder, it's not nearly as clear as it is on like the computer.
Right.
So we really didn't even pull up the SD card until a few days later, and when my wife had showed me what was on there, I mean, I was absolutely shocked that it was that clear. I had told her a couple days before that pretty sure we got a Bigfoot on thermal. I wasn't all that excited to watch something that wasn't very well defined, and it turned out it was a lot more defined and definitive than we thought it was.
Well, it's a great piece of footage, and it's obviously not a cow standing there, which I think I'd heard someone say, well, it was just a cow. Well, that's not a cow.
Yeah, it's not a cow. Cows don't have shoulders like that. Those shoulders are 4 feet across. And there's a grizzly bear is not that big.
Right.
I can't think of another animal that would be that big. It comes down to 2 things. It was a Bigfoot, but let's suppose that it wasn't a Bigfoot. It was either a Bigfoot or an 8-foot tall, 800-pound man watching us with his shirt off. And
right.
Either way, it's creepy.
Sure. That's true. Yes, that's true. Now, obviously, I know it wasn't a cow. I know it wasn't a bear. I mean, a bear doesn't have that type of chest muscles, Now, you guys have done some, work on this video, some comparison. You said it's like 8 feet tall. Is that what you came up with?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I want to say actually at least 7'6",
mm-hmm.
because there's no, when we're seeing it from the chest up, there's no way that we can determine where the feet were at the time.
Right. That's a good point. It could have been kneeling. It could have been, doing just about anything because it was behind a little hill, right?
Yeah, and when we had done the comparisons, Derek had came out and really tried to. He came out with his wife Tori and really tried to narrow where everything actually came from. I mean, because we could do comparisons. In our first comparison that we did, it wasn't accurate because if you move a few different feet in one direction, you're going to catch a branch that's not there in the original footage, and that kind of throws everything off. But I believe it was I want to say Steve Alcorn. He took a daylight comparison photo that I believe it was David Ellis and Derek had done, and he narrowed down exactly where it was and made the comparison to where we can get a pretty good idea that it was 4 feet across at the shoulders.
Wow. I mean, that thing's huge. I mean, you can look at it and see that it's huge. And I think it's, I don't have the exact measurements in front of me. It's like 117 feet away, or is that right?
Yeah, 117 feet.
117 feet away. And it still looked huge. You would expect if a man had been standing there at 117 feet, he would have been, minute compared, in comparison. I mean, the thing still looked pretty big. Even with a cow walking through, at the distance a cow was, you can tell that this thing was huge. You can do a size comparison even at that range, and you can tell this thing was big. This thing was real big, and I think it's an exciting piece of footage, and I'm excited to talk to somebody who was there when it was made. So that's awesome. Yeah,
I think it's I mean, there was a lot of people that had questioned why would the cows be so cool with it. Hey, that's one of the things that I question. I don't know. We can't talk to either of them about that. But it's perhaps cows are around them a lot more than we realize, and they haven't been harmed by them. So everything's just cool. Maybe they just think they're another person who doesn't hurt them, just comes around from time to time.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
What do Bigfoots do for entertainment? I don't know.
They go cow tipping.
Yeah. Well, maybe they do.
Actually, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, actually, you bring up a good point as far as, why the cows didn't seem to be disturbed by it, but there's also another explanation, and that is this thing stood pretty still. I mean, you could see the head move a little bit. You could see facial expressions change occasionally, so it was living. You know it was something standing there, and but it wasn't moving. The cows may not have even known it was there.
Yeah, and there have been times that I've been outside, like when I was telling you about when I heard the whistling. Mm-hmm. I smelt something really strong at the time, and it smelt very similar to a skunk. And it was just different enough, and that's when I was, just stood there listening and heard the whistling.
Right.
This thing was only 117 feet away, and I couldn't smell anything.
Right. And the cows, I don't think I've never seen a measurement of how far away they were, but I'm guessing, and it's just a guess, but I'm guessing they were, maybe 40, 50 feet?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe even as close as 30 feet at times.
I mean, let's just assume that they're as far away as 50 feet, which I think is a stretch. That would still mean that the Bigfoot was 70 feet past that, So the odds of it knowing that it was even there, in my opinion, is pretty slim. So, but you're right. They could be very used to a Bigfoot coming around. That's a good.
And I mean, I'm sure you've been around cows at some point, and
Sure.
They're not exactly the sharpest tools in the shed.
Yeah, this is true. Well, irregardless, I think it's a great piece of footage, and I think it's one that's going to last throughout time, because I think it's going to be a valuable tool when we finally get some discovery, of the Bigfoot existing,
Hey, I mean, I'm really glad that we were able to get that footage, and we want to get better footage. And it's easy to, look at things in hindsight and say, like, oh, if I would have only known about the things on the thermal, if I would have only known the thermal device as well as I do now, then things would be different. Because, yes, things would be way different. We could tell what the face looked like. We would have zoomed in. We would have, had the lens adjusted for perfect clarity. I mean, when you're just messing around with something like, oh, cool, this is a thermal device, and you're not understanding, all of its capabilities when you've only had it for a couple weeks, then there's just, elements that you don't know. But if we were in that same situation again, it would be completely different. I don't care if we had to stand there for an hour watching it. We would see something more than it just sitting there and moving its head.
Absolutely. And there is that learning curve that people have to go through. Unfortunately, your learning curve happened with a Bigfoot as opposed to, a deer or a cow or anything else. So, but irregardless, I still think it's a great piece of footage, and it's in the top 3 pieces of footage of all time in my book. So, so I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And now you've had some other experiences as well, not just that one. I mean, tell us about some other experiences you've had.
Okay. Well, about the first time that we had seen what we believe is a Bigfoot, and yeah, you can call it, eye shine's different than seeing a Bigfoot, but I look at it like, if I'm seeing the eyes of a Bigfoot, screw it, I'm going to say I saw a Bigfoot.
Right.
And you have to understand everything, that it wasn't just we saw bright eyes. We heard these rocks being banged together, just crack, crack, crack. And at this time, it was a point where my brother and I were outside so much that we really got sick of hearing them. I mean, it was still fun, don't get me wrong, but we wanted to see one. So at this point, we ran over to the direction where it was, and we didn't see anything at first until behind these bushes at about 6 feet up, there was these it looked like two flashlights that were just bright looking at us. And we're standing there at close to the same distance as we were in the footage. I mean, 100 feet, 120 feet. And we have lights shined at it for about a minute. And then it goes from 6 feet down to 2 feet. And maybe even only a foot off the ground. And then it just goes away after that point. But you have to understand that there's also a little hill, kind of similar to where the thermal footage was filmed, that, but I mean, I can't say that the creature was 6 feet tall. It could have been standing back a little bit further on the hillside and then just maybe got down on its knees, got down on its belly. I don't know, but those eyes, I've seen other animals' eyes. I've seen cougars' eyes. Cougars' eyes are creepy to look at. But this is something that was completely different, and I'm certain it was a Bigfoot. So that was exciting. We were just elated when that happened. And about a month after that, we started, trying out different things, and we decided that, we wanted to, really start gaining some trust, getting them to, creep further in. And so about a month after that had happened, and this would be 13 months ago. It was about 7 o'clock in April, at the beginning of April. So there was, still a little bit of daylight, sun's going down, and we're going into a different tree line and leaving some food. And we were doing this for about a week. We would hear, the bushes crash, and we would hear whistles, and we would hear banging sticks together, things like that. We'd hear a lot of commotion. And as exciting as it was, I mean, this is at a point where everything is really new as far as, close interaction. So, I mean, the level of fear that I had at the time was really high. I mean, I'm there with my wife. I know that there's multiple Bigfoots in the area, and I'm I'm not going to lie, I was just scared. And on this particular time, I glance over about 100 feet away, and there's this Bigfoot behind an evergreen, and it's not a tiny evergreen either. But it was funny how the Bigfoot looked like it was, trying to hide and peeking his head around at us, because he was just so massive. I mean, if he was, from the distance that I was and where he was, he looked like, even crouching down, he was every bit of 6'8", 800 pounds. And when you're looking at something from 100 feet away with daylight, you know what it is that you're looking at. It's not a blob squatch. And one of the things that really stood out to me was, I'm looking at this very pronounced cone-shaped head, and he's close enough to where I can see the texture in his hair. I mean, it was like matty, and it was reddish, and it was dark enough to where I really couldn't make out his face. But at that point, I honestly wasn't ready to see a face. I mean, it was one of those things that was very creepy. And I told Sarah, I was like, Sarah, and she would not look over there. And I just wanted to go at that time. I mean, the thought of, getting out my cell phone and, taking a selfie with a Bigfoot in the background wasn't even something that would, cross through my mind. I was concerned about safety. I don't know why he's looking at us, Not that I don't think he was there to harm us or anything.
Right.
You're just kind of at a standoff. You don't know what to do. And I felt so intimidated when he would, when I would glance over at him. I was looking at him through the corner of my eye for like 4 seconds at a time. And then I had no other option but to just like put my head down and act like I wasn't looking at him. I mean, it was like, I felt like a little kid being bullied. I mean, I felt like such a bitch for how I was acting at the time, but it's what happened.
Right. Well, I mean, it would be scary. I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you're with your family, and suddenly there's this thing, huge thing watching you. Yeah, I guess it would be scary.
So with things like that that have happened, that's why I wasn't just like on cloud 9 when we took the thermal footage. I mean, it wasn't nearly as exciting when all of that was going on. I was pretty sure that it was a Bigfoot that we were taking a picture of and a video of, but it wasn't like we were just, let's go see what this is for sure. I mean, I thought that the thermal video was going to be about the same as what I was looking at through the viewfinder.
Sure. And it's funny because I thought about that, and your FLIR footage, and I don't mean to go back to that, but just real quick. And had I not seen the comparisons, the comparison pictures that you guys have made, had I not seen those, then it could have been taken from a lot closer, and it could just be a really big muscular guy, from a lot closer. But with the comparison, and you see the pictures next to it, and you see someone standing there, that only leaves you really with one explanation, and that is that thing was real. That was a Bigfoot standing there. There's really no other explanation to it, and it's, to me, as crystal clear as the Patterson film or Stacy Brown's footage. There's not a whole lot of other things it can be. It's either real or it's not, and it's real. But
yeah, and you had seen the pictures where different people that we didn't even contact had cleaned up the contrast, had adjusted the contrast and made their own recreations of the footage. And there was things that I wouldn't have even thought to look for, like indentations by the neck and the chest, where the eye sockets are, where the nose goes in, things like just minor details. Like I'm not sure how it's pronounced, if it's sagittal crest or sagittal crest, but that on the top of the head as well. I mean, there's science involved in it that
Sure.
can be pulled from the footage.
Absolutely. But and again, not to dwell on that. I mean, we talked about that, and again, I think anybody who has any inkling of what they're looking for can look at that and tell that is a real Bigfoot. That's not just, I don't know. There's nothing else it could be. That's a Bigfoot. But
yeah, I don't know if you had seen. I don't know if you had seen from what had happened a month before. Like I had said at that time, we had only had that FLIR camera for a couple of weeks. Well, initially after Derek and David first came out, after we reached out to him, Derek had left us with a thermal eye, and the thermal eye, it has the capability of recording if the recording is external, but it's just a small old school thermal camera, and it's cool, but it just didn't have internal recording on it. And so about a month before, my wife and I were outside, and all of a sudden we hear this bang, 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 bang on this. We're assuming it was this old metal teapot that is laying in the woods back there. And it was really close by us at the time. And again, I got scared. The whole event is recorded from the parabolic, and it's kind of embarrassing to listen to. But after I had, we had, ran over towards the house at that time, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to go back a little bit with my flashlight and see what I see. So I turn on my flashlight, and, I don't know what the exact distance was, 80 feet, 100 feet, 120 feet, I don't know. But I just see these bright eyes, and I was like, oh, crap, there's eyes. And I walked right back over to the house. Sarah had Derek's little thermal eye. She's looking at it. She goes, John, I see him. He's swaying back and forth. It's a Bigfoot, John. This is the first time that she's looking at one, and we're just like, we'll take a picture with your cell phone camera. So she took a picture with her camera as she's looking at it through the thermal, and we did a recreation of that as well with David Ellis. And I don't know if you've seen that. I don't know if you've seen that picture.
No, I missed it.
But it's a Bigfoot that's there. I mean, there's nothing else that has thumbs that can be banging on something.
Right. Huh. That's interesting. And you made a point there. And when I hear someone talk about an experience, I always listen for some kind of detail that one wouldn't generally make up. You know what I mean? And you just hit the nail on the head when you said that. Sarah said, it's swaying back and forth. I think that's a great detail because it's in the woods, it's hidden, and it's it sees you because you're by the house with a light, but it's looking at you, and it's probably going back left and right, looking for a better angle to see what you guys are doing. You know what I mean? And I love that piece of detail.
Yeah, and I mean I look at it like this. They were obviously making their presence known. We weren't creeping from them. They were coming in for us, letting us know that we're here. And I'd shine my flashlight in its eyes. And the time before, my brother and I saw one across the street. We saw the bright shine after the rock clicking. We had flashlights on its eyes the whole time, and they were trying to get our attention, I believe.
Sure.
Well, it's just kind of hard to respond. At that time and place, it was just kind of hard to respond properly.
Right. And that's an interesting point as well. I mean, you hear so many people say that they're elusive and that they want to stay hidden and they don't want to have any contact. But in this case, they're making noise on purpose to get your attention. I mean, do you think they were trying to get you to leave their area? Why would you guess? And realize it's just speculation, just guessing. But why would you think they were doing that?
Well, we were leaving them food out before, and I don't know. Maybe they were like hey, bro, I'm hungry. You guys got anything? Like any of those treats that you were bringing me before? That fried chicken that you left out, that was pretty good. You got any more of that stuff? I don't know.
I think
those are things that, cross my mind that I think is most likely. I mean, I don't think it was like trying to get our attention, so we, walk up and, do fist bumps or anything like that. I think it was just, an animal wanting to be fed.
Sure. And I think that's a good explanation. I think that's a very possible explanation. Now, you and I talked quite a bit last night, and you had told me about your grandfather and that, he was well aware of that Bigfoot exists. Do you ever have any sightings that you're aware of that you can tell us about?
Did he have any other sightings?
Yeah. Yes. Because this is on the same property, and this is on the same property, right? I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my grandpa had died when I was 3 years old, so I didn't really get a chance to. I didn't really get to know him like a lot of my other cousins have. Mm-hmm. And some of my cousins have told stories about Grandpa said one time he went out to his smokehouse where he was smoking fish, and there was big footprints out there, and all the fish in his smokehouse was taken out. And the next day, there was a dead fish that was thrown over by it. I mean, that's one of the stories that he has. And there's another one where he had said he was checking his net on the river or fishing on the river. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he was on the river fishing. And the Bigfoot had gotten in the water and started chasing him. And I don't know, maybe it was trying to scare him away from his fish net. That's another time. And my grandma had said, like, my grandma and some of my aunts have said things like, he was a storyteller. And I was like, well, is there any other stories that he has told aside from that, kind of would suggest that, he's just full of crap? Because everything that he had said is, consistent.
Sure. And what was it? No.
One more thing that he had said, he told one of my cousins, he said, when there's Bigfoots around, one thing that you want to yell is, ooh! And he wasn't from the tribe that we're from. He's from the Yurok tribe down in California. So I don't know if that's, something that was, passed on amongst the Yurok tribe, like you say that kind of thing to a Bigfoot or not, but I just know that's one of the things that he said.
Sure. And that was like what, okay? Oop.
I have no idea what it means.
Okay. Cool. Well, if anybody's listening to this and they're out, give it a shot, see what happens, and let us know. Cause,
I've tried it a couple times. I can't necessarily say that I had any results, but I can't necessarily say at the times that I tried it, there was, Bigfoots around that were just watching my every move.
Sure. Now, I'm going to move on just a little bit here real quick. Now you and Sarah, you guys decided to, split away from the Olympic project. So what do you guys have going on now? What are you guys up to?
Well, it's Sarah, myself, and my brother. With the Olympic project, we're never going to forget their involvement, and they're a great group of people. I've had some really good times with them, but we just came to a point where both parties agreed that this is probably a good time to split off and do our own thing. And I wish them the best of luck. I hope they expand Bigfoot research, but we're just going to keep completely focused on what we have going on, and just let our investigation evolve. We'll have visitors out from time to time, but we just want to keep a small and efficient group together. And there's a few other people that we're working with, that are, going to be joining us as well.
Awesome. So so you guys are going to be doing your own research right there, basically at home.
Well, yeah, because I mean, at this point, it would be cool to go over to other locations and see what's going on. But when we have as much activity as we do, it really is kind of like trying to find a needle in a haystack when you're going someplace else.
Sure. Yeah, and it's funny because you look at a picturesque picture of the mountains, and you think, see, how many game cams would I have to put out to maybe get a picture, And it's actually a little undaunting, I'm sure. Do you guys have any particular plans right now on your property? I mean, obviously, some people don't like to give a whole lot of their reasons.
One thing's for sure is like when we're the most thermal cameras we've had at one time is there was a point where we had 2 out, but the second one wasn't there for very long, and we just simply want to get more equipment. I mean, if all of us had thermal cameras going on at one time, we're 3 times more likely to see something.
Sure.
Because our situation with the picture that Sarah had took from her cell phone and the thermal video that we have, those are situations where the Bigfoot's there for a considerable period of time. And I'm thinking, more than likely when we see them through thermal imaging again, it won't necessarily be as close. I would like to get something similar to where you see the full body like you do in Stacy Brown's. I mean, even if it's just a small clip, just like, yep, that's a Bigfoot, that's its arms. You can see that aspect of it as well.
And speaking of Stacy Brown, I understand you have a guest coming out to see it next weekend. Tell us about that. What do you guys want to do?
Yeah, Stacy and I, we kind of became cyber friends. We would, talk from time to time, and we've been talking on the phone, and I really like talking with him. I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other, and just plain and simple, I think it would be fun to go squatching together. I want him to come out here. I think it would be cool to go down in Florida and check out things that he has going on. We just we want to make some really good alliances with other researchers that if we'll let you out here, keep us in the loop on what you have going on.
Good deal. Now, so since we're talking about him, I want to go ahead and plug something for him, and I hope you're listening to this because Stacy, if you're listening, you owe me one. But I believe it's in September. He is actually him and Dave Lauer are putting together the Skunk Ape Conference down in Florida, and I guess it'd be the first one of its kind down there. So that'd be a lot of fun if anyone gets a chance to go down and check that out. They really should, because I guarantee you, Stacy Brown and David Lauer are going to put on one heck of a show, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a really fun and exciting thing to attend. And he sent me a text message yesterday that had said that he was announcing something about the Skunk Ape conference that's going on.
Oh, he hasn't announced that yet. I didn't realize that was inside. We might have to cut that out. I'll check with him, make sure it's okay.
He said he's announcing it on Friday.
Announcing it on Friday. Well, that's good then. By the time this comes out, then it'll be pretty good. I'll touch base with him, though, before I actually put this out, just to make sure that that's okay with him. I didn't realize that was hush hush. Actually, David Lauer mentioned it to me when I interviewed him, as a matter of fact. But yeah, but regardless, it's an interesting. It'd be really fun to go to, and I think it'd be a great time. I went to the Ohio conference last month or a few weeks ago, and it was insanely fun. Had a great time. Met Cliff Brackman and Bob Gimlin and just some great people. And I'm sure that Stacy will put on a show that would be compare, and it would be able to be, you can compare the two, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people talking about the Ohio Bigfoot Conference and, how it was such an awesome time. What did you think about it?
I thought it was a great time. Like I said, I met some great people. And in fact,
did you hear any good stories?
I did, and it's funny you said that because I talked to several people who had told me their personal stories there at the conference, and each of them were supposed to contact me because I was like, look, I'll never remember myself. I didn't have a pen and paper on me or anything else to write anything down with, unfortunately, but I was like, I'll never remember who they are. But if you guys contact me and tell me, hey, I talked to you at the conference, and then I'll know. And no one's contacted me yet, but I'm still hoping that they do because it's only been a few weeks ago, so it's not a big deal. But I've heard some great stories actually, of right there around in Ohio too, right here in Ohio. They'll be fun to listen to when they come out, I'm sure.
Huh. That's cool. I think any Bigfoot get-togethers are a blast.
It was my first one, and it's one for the books because it was a lot of fun. Mark does a great job putting those together. Now, speaking of having a lot of fun, though, can you imagine, and I'm talking to my listeners here, can you imagine the people behind what is arguably the best two pieces of FLIR footage working together? I mean, that would be a great thing. And that's you and Stacy Brown. I mean, tell us what you got planned. I mean, are you going to go squatching while you're out there? I mean, anywhere in particular? What do you got going on? Give us some details.
Well, I mean, we have things that we can add as far as things that we've picked up on that have worked for us. And he's from what I understand, an expert tracker, and I'm not a tracker. I see a track on the ground. I couldn't tell you if it was an elk or a cow.
Right. Right. I'm with you. Well, it's funny because he told me.
I think that it'll just be a lot of fun, exchanging stories.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he told me that he would give me a 2-hour head start, and I said, well, that'd be easy to find. I said, I'd be 50 feet inside the woods, stopping for a break. That'd be easy to find. But
yeah.
Good guy, and I'm sure you guys are gonna have a lot of fun, and I hope you keep us updated and let me know what's going on, and tell us about all the adventures and what you guys find, because I'm pretty confident that with a team like that, you guys should be able to at least come up with a track or two. Stacy is a hell of a tracker, so it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
now,
I hope that by the time he gets here, everything is as active as it has been the past couple of weeks.
Sure. Now,
I think it's pretty likely.
I agree. It's one of those. It's kind of like if you put, if you put so many experienced people together, and it's not a contest that everybody's working together. I think that's a mixture for success, and I'm excited to hear what you guys come up with, what you guys find.
Well, I think that when Stacy comes here, our chances of actually getting something good, I can't say that we're going to get a thermal video or anything like that, but the chances of having a really good experience are very high, because you have to remember that when it comes to Bigfooting, we have a very passive approach. I mean, I have 3 little girls. I got a 9-year-old, I got a 2.5-year-old, and a 4-month-old. So
congratulations, by the way.
My time for Bigfooting is very limited. I got an hour and a half that I just sit by the fire and listen, and I go there with my brother and my wife, and we don't go out exploring in the woods all day. On weekends, we do a lot of that, but having kids, our time is still limited. I mean, we have day jobs. My wife's home with the kids. We can't do things for a couple of days nonstop like we'll be able to, when Stacy comes. We'll have a babysitter then.
Sure. And I guarantee you get Stacy out there in the daytime, in areas where there's been activity, and he'll be able to find something. I'm pretty confident. I've said it 100 times. I'm excited for the opportunity you guys have, because you guys, I mean, you guys are the people to watch for. You know, you and Stacy Brown, David Lauer, Michael Merchant. You guys are the ones that people should be watching and learning from. You know, and speaking of that, that leads me to my next question, which is, as a seasoned researcher, what advice would you have for any new researchers who want to get out there and look for evidence for themselves? What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I would say don't just go trampling around in the woods. Do a little research as to where some really active areas are. I mean, you don't want to waste your time, going to places where there's no Bigfoots, when you could, be getting close to some areas where there's a lot of Bigfoot activity. Try things out. As far as, what you can do that draws them in. I don't even say that I know what works. It's a little bit different considering, we live close by all of the activity that we have going on. So it's easy for us to go, leave food out every night and things like that, and to get them to come in. But I don't know, just keep trying. Don't stick to methods just because people have been doing them, forever. Try different things out on your own and figure out what works. Maybe you're going to find the most effective way to attract Sasquatches.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. I think that's great. In fact, you and I, when we talked last night, I had mentioned that there's a technique that I wanted to try, and I hadn't really voiced this yet, but I thought, why not bring this up now? Maybe you and I can talk about it. Tell me what you think. But if there's any listeners out there who may want to try this, I think it's something worth trying. But basically, my theory is, you go out and you basically just go camping. You don't tree knock, you don't do whoops, nothing else. You just go to an active location and you go camping for a few days. You go fishing, everything else. But while you're there, set up a couple cameras, and then when you leave a little bit of a mess behind, something that would attract some attention, and then just a week later go check your cameras and see what you got. But what do you think about something like that?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a real abrasive approach. You're not chasing it. You're going to go and basically, in my opinion anyway, I don't know, key in on some interest that, or not interest, but curiosity from the big guy, and maybe he'll come in and say cheese.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried all kinds of different things out. We've gone outside banging on an Indian drum, tried singing like Indians and things like that. Mm-hmm. We've played music and music that it's stupid to say because who knows what kind of music Bigfoots would like. But for some reason, I think that they would like Bob Marley. So I've tried going outside, playing a lot of Bob Marley, but whatever works.
Sure.
I mean,
you told me that last night.
Just like people, I'm sure there's different Bigfoots that like different things. Sure,
absolutely.
I mean, some might have a foot fetish. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, as big as their feet are, I guess it'd be. They probably all have a foot fetish.
Yeah.
Now you told me last night why you chose Bob Marley, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot and ask you to tell why, because I think it's a good point. And tell us why you think it is that they like reggae.
Well, when I had told you, I had said that it's fact that babies respond positively to reggae-style music. Like it's upbeat. It's something that is soothing to them. That's not completely true because I had heard that from somebody who had heard that. So I don't know, but I believed it. And so I was thinking, well, if babies like it, it's good enough for Bigfoots.
Sure. And if it is true, then I think it's a good approach.
Uh-huh.
Well, Jonathan, I like to give my guests the last word on the show. So this is a chance for you to share any thoughts that I may have missed, or maybe I just didn't touch on, or just something you simply want to share. But I'm going to give you an opportunity to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
Well, honestly, Ed, I don't really think that I've left a whole lot out. I mean, we have a huge collection of audio, and that's a conversation in itself. I mean, there's like 300 clips that are recorded. I believe that, we believe that the majority of them are Bigfoots, but since it's recorded from the parabolic between 11 p.m. and 5 o'clock in the morning, we're not out there that whole time, to verify what's being picked up. But there's a lot of interesting pieces that are picked up, and I think that's the only thing that we haven't touched on. And that's not something that I'm personally involved in. My wife and David Ellis have, spent so much time on that. They've gotten familiar with spectrographic analysis. So when they're seeing a sound that comes up on the recordings, they're able to see the signature. So they can see the differences with, coyotes, dogs, even people talking. David and Sarah, they know what my whistle looks like on spectrographic analysis. There's things that they can rule out, but other things, there's a lot of crazy different recordings that we have. Aside from that, I mean, I'm kind of sick of hearing myself talk. Is there any advice that you have for me?
Well, I tell you, my advice for you would be to keep doing whatever it is you're doing, because I think that you and Sarah are on the right track. I would just tell you, keep doing what you're doing. It's working. You guys, I'm hoping, if you don't mind, send me that picture that Sarah took of the flir. I'd love to see that. I haven't seen that yet. Or if I have, I didn't realize
you could see that on Brown's Bigfoot Diaries at blogspot.com.
Brown's Bigfoot Diary at blogspot.com.
Bigfoot Diaries.
Oh, Bigfoot Diaries. Okay, gotcha. And we'll put that on the screen there so people can go to that and check that out. I know I'm going to. But Jonathan, listen, man, I appreciate you taking the time today that you did to share with us, your experiences and what you guys have going on. And I'm excited for you. I think you guys are on the right track. But I do want to say thank you for taking time, and I've enjoyed this time together.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, keep in mind, when you guys get any other footage or sounds or anything else, let me know. I'd love to check them out.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you in the loop. And next time you come over to Washington, come over to our place, and you'll probably hear something.
Good deal. I'm actually planning, or possibly anyway, planning a trip in July. My girlfriend and I have been talking about it, so we might be out there in July.
Cool. Well, we'll have a Brown reunion.
Yeah, we'll have to call Stacy up again, and we'll all get together.
He's actually coming out again in August.
Oh yeah. Well, good. Yeah. Well, good deal, buddy. Hey, listen, man. Again, thank you very much for your time, and it was a great interview. It went really well. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I think that's it, Ed.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you. You have a good day.
You too.